Hello, everyone. This is Zorina Dimitrova, host of the Grow and Learn podcast, and I have the pleasure to welcome Miss Elena Armijo, an ex-opera singer from the metropolitan New York City turned an executive coach. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you so much, Zorina, for having me.
Great having you. You're such a shiny person. I read a few comments from your coaching clients on your LinkedIn profile, and they're like, one of the comments said, Elena is like feels like a sunset, so shiny and and warm.
Yes,
So you do bring this
sweet
feeling. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I like to think that I got that from my family with my mom and my background of just bringing warmth to every room and conversation when you can, because why not?
Beautiful, beautiful. So you were an opera singer for 14 years, and suddenly you turned a corporate coach. Yeah, business coach. What happened?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good story. Well, my whole life, I love music. I grew up in a very multicultural area, and my family very much encouraged having music be a part of my background, in my life. It's something I showed interest in, but also something that they nurtured and they welcomed. So I can remember from the time I was little having music be a part, one of those pictures where my mom used to show me singing with a hairbrush in front of the TV type moments. So I pursued music in undergrad and my master's, and it sort of always followed me. I thought I would be a teacher. I got my undergrad in music education, and I always thought that I'd end up teaching little kids music. But as fate would have it, I kept singing, and the more that I sang, people kept paying me to sing. And so that's sort of how I ended up, on opera stages all over the world. And I loved it. It was a great way to see the world in my 20s. I got to meet all kinds of interesting people and be in different rooms that I probably never would have otherwise. And I really enjoyed it. And I think there reached a point where I had been on the road for 4 years straight, 10 months out of the year, I was traveling. So I was only back in New York for 2 months at a time. And I was getting really burnt out. I was in that very lower middle level of opera trying to reach the next level. And I could see if I kept going that I was going to reach where I wanted to be, like at Verona or the Metropolitan Opera or, all the fancy places.
Yeah.
But it was hard and I was tired, and, I'd missed another important birthday party back home. And I think I was on my third failed relationship at that time. And I just remember thinking, wow, I don't know if I can live this life to get what I want. And the other piece that was really interesting to me is I love music, and I had never intended on making it a business. And making it a business really sucked some of the life out of it for me. Mm-hmm. And I had this compounded with guilt. There's so many singers in the world that really want to be in the position that I was in. And I was, not happy and wanted out. So I hired a coach myself. I came off the road and worked with a coach. And through that work, I realized that I really loved coaching, the profession, the methodology behind it, the transformation that can occur with it, and ended up in a coaching program myself so that I could become credentialed and certified. And that was 8 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow, amazing. There have been some documented relationships between people that are very good in music or professional musicians and the executive suite.
Yes, it's true.
So there are books, I don't know if you've heard about them, about the executive conductor or things like that. And I remember in business school, my strategy professor was a conductor himself before he became a strategy professor and afterwards a director of the MBA program. So he said that there are apparently very clear links in your brain that allow you to conduct and a whole band and everybody who participates in the music piece, and being able to coordinate a company.
Yes.
Yeah. Have 100%. You noticed this yourself?
Yeah, I actually think it's why I'm effective in C-suite rooms. Now as an executive and leadership coach, that's all I do is I coach C-suites.
Yeah.
And I think the correlation is a lot of things. Number one, when you're on stage with that many people, you are on a team. So it is a team component, right? And when you're running a business and you're growing a business, everything is about partnership and teams. And how do you work together, and how do you support each other? How do you get the best out of each other? So you learn very early on that the skills you need to develop teamwork are integral to creating a great show, right? So that directly correlates into the C-suite room. I think the other piece that I take away that's a big deal is excellence. There's a fine line between excellence and perfectionism. And so I talk about that all the time in C-suite rooms, is where is that line, and where can you actually demand and create excellence at a very high level, right? Because that's what we're doing on an opera stage. How many times did you have to sing that line before you could actually sing it, in the show, in person, in that moment? Versus when does it become detrimental and toe into the world of perfectionism, which, we all know is not healthy and breeds a different set of things that you might not be intending to create.
So you're the founder of the CSuite Collective, and you just mentioned it. What is the CSuite Collective? What is it?
Yeah, it is something we're launching. It's coming live November 1st. So I'm very excited. This is my brainchild that I've been working on for about 3 years now. And basically it exists because I saw a need in the market for more people to have more support than they've ever had in their entire lives. So, a lot of the people I coached were C-suites or founders or entrepreneurs or startups, where they had these beautiful ideas and they hired me as a coach, but they also needed multiple levels of support. So what we've created is an agency where you can come and you can find your coach. Yes. But also we have people on staff like a sound healer or a Reiki therapist or an herbalist or a sleep consultant or, mental health professionals. And in addition to all the training we do, like Dare to Lead work with Brene Brown or sales training, we incorporate that holistic approach together so that when you really come to us, you're getting massive support in all areas. Whereas, most people, I think they hire a coach and then maybe sometime in their life, they see a Reiki therapist, and then maybe three years down the road, they might hire a nutritionist. And so they do it in drips, in stages of their life, which isn't a bad thing, right? But here, you come to us and imagine if you had 1 full year of all of this support available to you, what you could create in 1 year. So that's kind of the mission and the vision, and changing cultures from the inside out with companies that are really ready to deep dive and do this work.
Beautiful, beautiful. I've also had some clients being more and more interested in these metaphysical alternative methods of psychological health.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, awesome. So, we could take the conversation in multiple directions, but initially we were thinking of talking about women and the challenges women face. First of all, are most of your clients women, out of curiosity?
I would say there's a good 60-40 split. So it's typically women heavy and women centric, but there are the men that come through that want a different way of thinking from a more shall we say feminine energy approach, which is usually who comes my way.
I see, because my observation actually points to the fact that mostly women seek external advice, but maybe it depends on the type of coaching they're looking for, and especially if you're looking for if you're working for the C-suite, they're mostly men there. So let's talk about women.
Okay. I like it. Yeah.
All right. So, I've talked to quite a few people that have written books on challenges that women have in their workplace. Books similar to the one that Sheryl Sandberg came up with about 10 years ago. And it kind of goes along the same lines of what women are facing in terms of challenges and what they should be doing. It's kind of more or less clear. And still there's a missing link. There's something missing that people are simply not getting. um, women are not able to overcome this hurdle. I can't pinpoint it exactly. Is it self-confidence? I mean, mostly they say it boils down to self-confidence, but is there something else? I mean, we all know self-confidence, structures of the companies, culture. And now that we know all of that, and men also know it, why are women still not able to overcome this hurdle?
You
I
know,
know
I think,
it's maybe I'm
yeah.
throwing you in deep waters suddenly, but
No, it's good.
I'm just thinking myself, what is it that women
Yeah.
can't grasp, and what is the overall hurdle in the world?
You know, I think, yeah, it's a multi-layered question, right? We could
Yes.
look at it from many angles. So I don't know that there's a one answer, but here's what I do know. When we look at this from like what's missing or what's a problem,
Yeah.
we're always going to be in fix it mode, right? Which means like, what can I do better? What do I need to change? What needs to go differently? Which isn't necessarily a bad place to look.
Yeah.
But I find a more empowering place to look is, what do I want? What do I desire? What are the things that I would love to create? And when we start the conversation from that place, that context, I think that we have more things available to us as humans, not just women, but as humans, you know? And as a woman, if I'm constantly thinking like I'm not getting ahead because I'm not confident enough, or I don't use my voice and I can't ask for a raise, or I don't have enough family support, right? Like nobody understands like what I'm juggling with between work and family and all the things. Then we're in a conversation about like, how can I fix all of this?
Right.
As opposed to, how do I want this to look? You know, if I were to sit down and draw out my ideal day of what my beautiful balance on my terms look like, I imagine it would be a whole different conversation. And I think that that's the sweet spot for women to start from, instead of I need more confidence, or I need to be better at negotiations,
Right.
or I need to play the game, right? Because one is a defensive conversation and one is a generative conversation. So I think that's the place to start with most people, you know, especially women. And I think that we have a shot if we come from that place, because then we're actually creating something in partnership with men, as opposed to defending something against men. Right. Which is all of a sudden not in partnership anymore.
Yeah. I love this answer and this point of view, and it actually reminds me of a study that was done on the reason why fewer women go into technology and whatever the abbreviation was for this this thing that they're pushing, the education of women in technology and a few other fields, technology, maths, and I forgot what it was. And it clearly wasn't the aptitude that women had, like their ability. It wasn't the ability, but it was the aptitude. They simply didn't want that as much. I mean, they started wanting it when it was advertised, when it was proposed too much. But deep inside, women actually didn't want to engage in that. And that is the reason, possibly, why there are less women in technology, less women in mathematical fields, and so on. So do your clients actually, when they're already in the C-suite, do they, when they reconcile their professional path, do they actually feel that this is what they've wanted to achieve?
So, I mean, you know, the ones I work with, like I'm thinking of the women that I work with in particular in tech, like just to use one example, right? I have a client right now who's in the C-suite in tech. And I think she really loves what she does.
Yeah.
You know, she really loves her profession. She loves the intricacies behind it. She has a very logical approach. You know, she likes to build things and put things together and have strategy. So I think that she enjoys it. I think where she excels is when she brings her humanity to her logic. Right. Instead of trying to fit in with like the one way we've seen technology minds go, or at least been presented to in stereotypes. Right. I think that when she slows down and she actually brings some compassion and some support and some of these things like, hey, this is actually what I want and what I see from vision and creation, then we get a little bit more of a robust experience of her in her C-suite versus I have to play it this way because this is how technology has gone. Right. So my job is to come in and actually awaken that part of her so that she feels like she can actually bring that in there and be, the unicorn in the space, or the courageous leader that is doing something different, which, in this particular client's example, has served her extremely well because it's been innovative and different, and the company has benefited huge rewards from that. Right. So I think it's a combination. Like, I do think she loves it, but I also think she has had to bring her whole authentic self to it,
right,
to feel like she's being fully seen and heard.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we take the perspective of a company now, what could an employer do to retain high female talent or to meet their needs? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great question, especially right now, right? Because look, every employer is figuring out how to be in this new world, how to be in, a hybrid situation, or what's going to happen with the next variant that's going to come along. So I think that the name of the game right now is, number one, compassion. Show up and have a compassionate conversation with people. So, it can start with exactly where we started. Like, hey, how do you want this to go, Zorina? You tell me what your perfect balance would look like right now, knowing that our whole world and the company has been shooken up, right? Into a way that we now have to reinvent as we go forward. So you tell me what would make you happy. I think that's the very first conversation that employers need to have. And then the follow-up question to that is, what is the support needed to implement that? And it will look different for every person. So I think right now, employers are sort of falling into a trap where, the old school style of this before COVID, shall we say, was, we could do a couple of sprinkling of support that was sort of like one size fits all. Like, everybody gets 6 weeks of vacation, or we have, this beautiful day off that everybody can go and create community together. Or we have services that allow you to have, metro passes for free. We help you with your commuting, right? But they were these generalized buckets of support for all of the company, versus really creating an individualized support system for every person. Now, look, that sounds daunting, and if I'm a founder of a company that has, 300 employees, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to take so much time.
Right.
But the time invested in that will reap huge rewards in culture, happiness. Not that it's all about happiness, but happiness equals ROI for some people, and retention. I think if you're a founder, you're always going to be in a conversation of what does retention look like, and scouting talent, but it has to feed directly into the culture you've already created. So those are the key pieces that I would look at for any employer right now is, compassion and empathy. What does that person's balance look like? And then what's the support that can really create that for them?
And what would you advise female candidates then for the company that they're looking for, that they're looking to join? How can they ensure that the company they're applying for would meet their needs? How would they know? Because especially now, I could imagine that people are kind of afraid for their jobs. There've been a lot of job cuts or reduced time shifts to part-time working. It's not tremendous, but and there's also a fear of an economic downturn. So how would you, as a future employee, balance between my needs and my fear of not being able to get any job in the future or in the near future? Yeah.
Well, I think the way that I would answer that is, remember, fear of not being able to get any job in the future is a context and sort of like a limiting belief, right? So yes, we have some real evidence of what's been happening in the world, and things like the economy crashing and job loss, and people not having any work, for most of COVID. Yes, that's actual evidence and lived experience. Outside of that, though, if we operate from that place, then we're going to start creating more of the same. So I always say, let's take a step back from the fear for the moment. It doesn't mean that it's not there or we're not going to address it. But if we were coming from a place that this is actually the perfect time for you to find a new job, what would we be creating then? Right. So a lot of the women that I've worked with recently that are looking for new positions, maybe leaving their current position, or have recently lost their current position. It's actually, there is a ton of work out there, but weeding through again what you want instead of, I've got to take the first thing that comes across my desk because I'm not safe, I don't have enough money, I need insurance, like whatever the conversation is. I think we have to put that aside for a second and again start from, what do I really want to create? Then once you get that list or those ideas or that vision, the very next step is, okay, what are some ways I can create to ask questions to see if this company is aligned with what I want? And that's a partnership conversation. That can look at like anything from what are your values as a company? What happens, during the next variant? What's the plans, the future plans for if we all have to be in lockdown again, right? Or tell me how you handled lockdown and what you've learned from COVID. Tell me where you want to be in 5 years. Where does the company headed? I think some of these things people are afraid to ask in an interview setting because they're the ones being interviewed. And I firmly believe that an interview is a partnership. So, really asking the questions that you need to support you in what you're looking for is important on the other side. And I think the last thing I'll say about all of this is just remember there's a huge market right now out there for talent. People want women. They want to encourage great C-suite women to stay. So everything is actually in your favor right now. More so than probably, 5 years ago.
Awesome. Where can people find you, Elena? You have a podcast called In a Matter of Speaking with Elena Armijo. I'll put the link below.
Yes.
Yes.
You can find me on my podcast. We have lots of conversations like this around leadership in the world. And, a lot of women in season 1 that I interviewed that were all disruptors in the world and how they were continuing to move forward and disrupt the world amidst COVID this last year. And then you can go to my website as well, which is elenaarmijo.com. And that's, where you can find all my services and coaching for the moment. And then again, November 1st, the CSuiteCollective.com will be live.
How do you spell it? The URL? What is the URL of the C-Suite Collective?
Yeah, it's THEC, just the letter
no
C.
Dash.
And
one
dash.
word. Okay.
One word. Yeah, the CSuiteCollective.com. Yeah. So
awesome.
That's how you can find me, multiple ways.
So do check out Elena's podcast. I managed to quickly browse through all the topics, not all the topics, the recent topics, and they were really interesting. So I do encourage you to check it out. Thank you so much, Elena. It was a very pleasant conversation. Do come back
thank you, Zorina.
to the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Zorina. And thank you for what you're doing in the world. It's amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you too.